Can you get your name and badge number?
Yeah.
I just want to.
Stephen, 4376.
I'm sorry, say it one more time.
Santa Stephen, 4376.
Thank you. And
yes,
I want to tell you did a nice job with those guys. And look, they're making nice over there, which is always nice when there's an accident. They're
actually pretty bad damage.
I know, and she's a little shaken, but you did a really nice job with them. So do you write a report for this or no?
So with this type of accident, no, we wouldn't.
That's what I thought.
This is Susan Bassey, and most people don't understand that police often don't write police reports for accidents, and that's because they're not witnesses to the accident and they're not going to testify in court, especially in cases such as these where there were no injuries or fatalities. The police officers just simply clear the roads, direct traffic, and make sure that everybody gets on their way. And for this, police are afforded immunity because police officers should be able to show up, do their job, and not worry about getting sued. Think about it. That's where immunity makes sense. Police officers need to be able to do their job, follow their training, and not worry about being sued every time they show up. And unless they commit crimes, take money illegally, or act completely negligently, they have immunity, just like lawyers, just like judges, and just like people who might show up and decide to help. In California, we have Good Samaritan laws, like many other states, and that means if you show up to the scene of an accident and you provide medical or non-medical help to the people involved in the accident, you're unlikely to be able to be sued. And the thought process and public policy behind these laws is we want people to help each other. We want people to help each other with medical or non-medical assistance if they're able to do so before police and emergency responders show up. And if you do help somebody and you're not doing it for money or a corrupt motive, you're not committing a crime or acting negligently, meaning in a manner that no other reasonable person would do, you shouldn't be sued for trying to be a good Samaritan. So while it's easy to understand why we have Good Samaritan laws and why police officers are afforded immunity, few people understand that lawyers also have immunity. And that means that even if they lie or fudge the truth in court, they're not likely to be held accountable. And that includes from taking money from their private clients out of their trust account or committing crimes where the district attorney rarely decides to go after these attorneys who are really doing great public harm. The other people that have immunity that we're not really used to are judges. And judges are often watched by juries, and they're on their best behavior even when there are not cameras in the courtrooms because the judges know that the public is watching. But when there are no juries, as we recently saw in the Chili DeCastro criminal case down in Las Vegas, or as we see every single day in family court or civil harassment and unlawful detainer cases, then judges may act with bias and violate due process rights. And if they do, there's little remedies that we have available to us because you can't sue a judge. They have absolute immunity. And even if you do sue them, your case is most likely going to get thrown out and you're going to face more retaliation. Every state has a judge watchdog agency that is supposed to investigate bad judges, but the numbers behind these agencies are shocking. Over 1,570 complaints were submitted about judges in California alone in the year 2023, and only one judge was disciplined, meaning the judge agencies act very much like police agencies act, and they do very little when it comes to public protection. Police officers have internal affairs, lawyers have the State Bar of California, and judges have judicial watchdog agencies such as the Commission on Judicial Performance. But the public must watch these individuals. They all are public servants, and cameras are a critical part of watching them, but so are public records. And even those we still have a hard time getting when it comes to police officers, lawyers, and judges.
You mentioned the police officers' Bill of Rights. Could you briefly talk about that?
Yeah, so police officer unions are fairly strong in our state.
Lawyer and judge associations are also very strong in the state. They tend to work more for their members than public protection, as they are charged to do with taxpayer money. In California, attorneys only pay $404 a year to be a licensed attorney, and that rate hasn't increased since 1998. So when they try to increase the rate to close to what it would be with inflation, the lawyers took a great deal of time, almost a year, in order to do the fee increase.
And have been, and so they've been able to get a number of protections and confidentiality that other employees are not generally subject to. So when I talked about personnel records, medical records, and I talked about how when there is, a complaint or there's some sufficient indicia of reliability that the complaint is well founded, that there was some misconduct. If you're a police officer, none of that would have been disclosed before pre-2019. It was something like 40 years where there was no disclosure about any kind of wrongdoing, no matter what it was. So if it was a question about whether you fired your gun in the line of duty and that was correct, you would never get anything about that. If there was, information about, for example, sexually assaulting someone on duty, you would get no information, even if they found they had done it. And so there was a lot of information that was not disclosable. And so you can thank Senator Skinner. She's the one that brought SB 1421 and SB 16 and opened up law enforcement records at least a little bit. I mean, in my opinion, there are other categories that should be included, and there should be broader disclosures, but it was a huge transformation and a huge starting step. And I think if you look a little bit at POBAR, it really protects. It's not only about confidentiality. That's where we see it. We see it in the confidentiality and non-disclosure of records, but it also includes a bunch of kind of due process protections for officers that are accused of wrongdoing, like when they can be questioned, how long they can be questioned, things of that nature. So it really just is kind of this heightened due process for police officers when there's any kind of investigation or when there's something that's happened.
And just like police officers are afforded due process and confidentiality more so than the rest of us are in courts, so are lawyers and judges. The state bar rarely disciplines attorneys, even when they've engaged in serious misconduct and the evidence points to that something should be done as a matter of public protection. And judges, who are supposed to make disclosures and recuse themselves from cases rather than ruling in cases where they might have a personal or financial interest, rarely do, and they too often act with bias when there are no cameras rolling in the courtroom in order to document that bias. And without cameras in courtrooms, it's very difficult to discipline attorneys and judges. And so perhaps it's time, just like we have body cameras on police for a reason, it's time to put cameras in those courtrooms.